Welcome back to another episode of Unemployed with Mike Schaefer. I am, of course, Mike Schaefer, joined by Kaleb Henry on Mondays. This is the 6th week, I think, of being unemployed while actually really being employed now at this point.
Yeah. Well, now we did get a week off, like our
Yeah,
own.
you and I had the only days off in the show's history. Me because I needed it, you because I wasn't going to make you do a show by yourself without giving you more than enough notice to go fill that hour. So
That would have been fine. I would have come in and I would have been like, I'm doing nothing but stories about being unemployed from when I got laid off from radio in 2019.
That was like one of the original concepts of this is when I kind of pitched it. It was like, yeah, I'm just going to bring my guests on and then I'm going to ask them, have they ever been fired? Were they ever unemployed? What was that like? And then they could tell stories.
And then it turned into a weekend.
Yeah. Well, but then it also just turned into like, oh, I'm going to have this guy every Monday. I'm going to have this guy, and it's like, it became more, less of a concept in my head and more a functional actual podcast. Now, whether people think it's functional or not is entirely up to them. But
scale.
We do appreciate the response that we've been getting and all of the people that have been watching and listening and everything else. It's been terrific. It also helps, Kaleb, of course, that there is a basketball team that likes to win basketball games and genuinely has been as good as any basketball team that I've ever watched in the same uniform. It's kind of amazing. They just go on the road to Rutgers, a place that has been, I would classify it almost like a house of horrors for them. They have lost some games there that they have no business losing. I don't know if people remember this. Rinkmath's first experience at Rutgers was just Nebraska blowing like a 17-point lead and losing to Rutgers in the year that they went to the NCAA tournament in a game that it felt like they absolutely could not give away. And Mass had kind of a terrible last couple minutes of that game. And there was a time where Nebraska lost with like 1.5 seconds on the clock because they just didn't cover the inbounds pass on an inbounds that was underneath the basket. That was a Tim Miles loss. They have just not played particularly well at Rutgers. Now, there's also been times where like Keisei Tominaga went out there and then scored a bajillion points and just lit their nets on fire. And things like that too. So it's not all been bad at Jersey Mike's Arena, but for the most part, it hasn't been the sort of welcoming committee that you really want. And it's a good place to stub your toe. And Nebraska did not do that on Saturday with a workman-like 12-point win that kind of felt like it should have been more than 12 points. And yet at the same time, who are you to complain if you're able to go on the road at 11 a.m. in a building with absolutely no juice other than for anime cards and
baby.
go get a win? I mean, it was just impressive in its own way.
I was telling Jack on the Nebraska ball hour after the game on Saturday, that's the most 20 to 30 point win feeling that I've probably had with the Nebraska basketball game that actually ended up being 12 points. That was 10 points with under a minute to go, and you were weirdly feeling, oh, are you going to have to make some free throws here? Did Rutgers get hot at the weirdest and most optimal time for them? And ultimately, that's not what it was. You had the little bit of a break where you didn't play in the midweek. Are you starting to look, okay, this is part of that 3 out of 4 game stretch where you lost to Michigan, you lost to Illinois. You definitely want to make sure you get that one against Purdue. Don't mess this up against Rutgers. And Nebraska, start to finish, didn't mess it up. Even with the Scarlet Knights, as Jack and I agreed on Saturday, hit some of the stupidest shots throughout the course of that game where it was like, that's an ill-advised shot. That's a bad shot. That's a bad shot. All right, well, if they go in, technically they're good shots. Every shot that goes in is a good shot. Rutgers took a lot of bad shots that became good shots and kept them in this game and didn't allow it to get to that 30-point difference. It got to 20 at one point, but it could have been much worse.
Yeah, if you did not watch the game at all, and all you did was look at the team stats line and the box score, this game would feel a lot closer than 12 points. But if you watch the game, you wonder how it was even at 12 points. But Rutgers shot 48% from the field. Rutgers shot 32% from three. those are just off of Nebraska's numbers. Rutgers had 12 free throw attempts. Nebraska had 12 free throw attempts. Now, Rutgers only made 7 of their 12, and Nebraska made 11. And Nebraska made 2 extra three-pointers, the Rutgers only making 7. And there's roughly your difference. Like, that's 11 points right there. And so it's one of these things where, Nebraska, I think, outplayed them in a lot of ways, but Rutgers, weirdly, and I don't even think Nebraska's defense played bad. Rutgers got 48%, which is better than like most teams shoot against Nebraska. Again, like, not to by any means pick on a 12-point win. It's just one of those where the margin in this conference, even against a team that is now 9-15, that Rutgers is, you just never know what version of a team you're going to get. There's no way that anyone that has watched Big Ten basketball would have sat there and said Minnesota is going to go 1-1 this week. They're going to beat Michigan State, and then they're going to lose to Maryland. Like, no one is actually thinking that's going to happen, but that's just sort of the conference. Like, the margins are relatively small, and so for Nebraska to go handle its business, even though, again, it's a team that you should beat, and there shouldn't be like a victory parade for them in Lincoln because they won this game. It is notable because these are just the things that Nebraska basketball genuinely doesn't do. And so when they are, and again, it's equivalent to tying your shoes. You don't have to throw a party for it, but hey, you know what? Pretty good knots from Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, Schaefer, to your point, you have to go take care of business. It can't just be, do you get up for the games against Michigan State, Illinois twice, Michigan, Purdue coming up? Because what has happened, Nebraska beat Wisconsin by 30, but Michigan went and lost to Wisconsin. Michigan State, I think it was, lost at Minnesota. You had the Oregon took Purdue all the way to the wire on Saturday. Like, these are teams that are middle of the tier conference and much, much worse. And you still have to go take care of business, especially on the road. It's really tough to win on the road in this league. It seems like this is one of those conferences where outside of Lincoln, you get a lot of home cooking calls. You're allowed to be extra physical. I will say this, though. I thought Nebraska got a lot of calls itself in Piscataway, and some of that might be that there's a single-digit number next to the Nebraska, and Rutgers has now lost 7 in a row or something like that. Just like, they're having a really, really bad year in Piscataway, and the RAC is not its historical jumping and kind of really tough place to play because of the environment. It's just, for whatever reason, all those 17, 18 footers really, really worked out for Rutgers in a way that they haven't. And now for Nebraska, you did get that win that gets you kind of, okay, you're back on track. You take a little breath. You had a little bit of a break, and now you have Purdue. Now it becomes real that you're back into and I didn't see the rankings that came out 10 minutes ago, but you're back to another top 15 game, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's another huge opportunity. And just kind of looking at the standings, Caleb, like, if Nebraska loses, they'd be at 10-3, which would put Purdue also at 10-3. So now you've invited Purdue into the 10-win club, and they're hanging out with where you are, where Michigan State is, and where you want, Illinois and Michigan to be as well. And so you're kind of like, Nebraska's a little bit of the bouncer here. Like, you're trying to keep Purdue out of that club. It's your job to make this as exclusive as possible. And frankly, you don't even want Michigan State in the club, but they beat Illinois, which brought Illinois slightly closer to you. So it's a kind of huge game for a lot of different reasons. And there's also this. There's a lot of teams hanging out at 4 losses right now. I mean, Purdue's at 9-3, but then if Nebraska, you're at 10-3, you're not that far away from where Iowa at 8-4 and Wisconsin at 8-4 are. And I think it's really important for this team to finish out strong. I think it's really important to get a top 4 seed. I think it's really important that, if Nebraska is going to get the Oklahoma City regional, I can't call them regional, but whatever, Oklahoma City tournament site that we so desperately clamor for here, they've got to be able to be, a top 3 seed in the tournament. And this is where my brain has gone after years of not watching Nebraska ever make the tournament. Caleb, I want a 2 seed now. I can't go back to being a 3 seed. I don't want to be a 4 seed. I don't want to be a 5 seed. I don't want to be a 6 seed. All of these things that I have never experienced for the most part. I want to see Nebraska be a 2 because lines on the internet have shown that they can be a 2. So now it is in my brain and it's what I want. And so it makes this Purdue game, which was already really big. And oh, by the way, this was a team picked by some to win the freaking national championship this year. And they're coming to your house. And you're coming off of that last home game was against Illinois, where the fan base was absolutely brought it in the whiteout. It should be another great environment, and I'm ready to play now. And we have to wait until Tuesday at 6 o'clock at least. It's not a late
6
start.
o'clock. Yeah. You're not getting the 8 o'clock tip. Oh my God, how late am I going to be out tonight? Am I going to get home before midnight or not? For all of the post game stuff we do with the basketball hour and quick kernels, and I'm sorry that you're employed. I'm happy to not be up for a morning show after 8 o'clock Tuesday tips, but you don't have that tomorrow. Nebraska number 7, by the way, in the new AP poll. Illinois falls to 8. Michigan still up at 2. Purdue down at 13. And you also have Michigan State in the top 10 at number 10. So 7 versus 13 tomorrow at Pinnacle Bank Arena.
Wild. Just, not unusual for Purdue to be ranked. Nebraska famously beat number 1 Purdue in that building 2 years ago in what was a terrific game that really Purdue never, after the start of the second half, never really threatened to be to winning that game. Like that's kind of one of the charming things about that win over the number 1 is like Nebraska sort of just had it in hand for the last 10 minutes of it. And I hope they have experience like that when they get their first round in March.
If you're thinking about
they're definitely a 2.
The evolution of this team, Schaefer, you go back 2 years ago and you had the game against Kalkbrenner, and like you started to see what does this defense really look like under Nate Lenzer? What does it really look like with that rotation? And you have Rink Mast and how does everything look? And then you get the Wisconsin win, you have the Purdue win, and yeah, the roster just wasn't really built for it last year. But now it's all back, and you see the defense playing really well. And it seems like Nebraska has built this defense to be really, really good against the things that make the Big Ten good. And that's typically having a focal point with your big. And Nebraska does so good at taking a lot of those away. Now, yes, people are going to look at the Illinois game and be like, well, why didn't it work against Illinois? I'm sorry that they have the number 1 efficiency offense in the history of the Ken Pom. It almost doesn't matter what you're built for if they are firing on all cylinders with, again, the number 1 efficiency offense in the history of the Ken Pom.
Yeah. And then just in addition to that, Michigan State beating Illinois, Illinois beat Nebraska, Nebraska beat Michigan State and Illinois earlier. Like,
yeah,
this is when you're really good and you're in the club, you're going to beat other teams in the club. And that's why you keep Purdue out of the club. They don't get to be in it. They already lost to Illinois. They're going to have their opportunity here against Nebraska if Nebraska's able to finish that out. I think they still play. They play Michigan twice. Purdue's got a tough schedule kind of
Purdue
remaining.
does.
So they need this Nebraska game if they're going to be a higher ranked seed. But so they're at Nebraska. Then they're at Iowa, who's playing good basketball, by the way. Home against Michigan, home against Indiana, home against Michigan State. So they only get Michigan. Looks like they only play them once. They only get Michigan State once. They've got a tough stretch down this way, but they actually lucked out. They only played Illinois once. They only played Nebraska once. They only played Michigan once, and they only played Michigan State once. So that's, for how bad that could have been, seems like all the rest of those played each other at least twice.
Yeah. And you've got, when you're looking at where things stand, Nebraska 1 spot behind Purdue in both the Ken Pom and Bart Torvik. And Nebraska, Michigan State is actually 1 spot ahead of Purdue as well. Nebraska's got the win over them. Michigan is number 1 in Ken Pom, Illinois number 4. Like, it comes down to beating Purdue to decide, are you legitimately going to be able to be in that 2 seed category, or does 3 seed become kind of your ceiling if you lose this one? Because it feels like such a missed opportunity if you don't get it, because you don't have many more opportunities against these teams that are ranked really highly in here.
Well, and there's also just if you beat Purdue, then your brain can kind of wander to the idea of could we be talking about it? Like, could Nebraska run the rest of the table? Because Purdue's the best team that you play there. Iowa at home is going to be difficult.
Yeah,
And
Nebraska is not favored at Iowa. They're favored in every game the rest of the way.
Yeah. And so then it's like, you got to go out to LA, and trying to win both of those games are tough. But you're sort of at the point where, like, if you beat Purdue, there is a roadmap to being 29-2 in the regular season, with your 2 losses coming in what was the worst week of the year from you in a context standpoint, of your starting center puked 15 times and did not play against Michigan, and then had to go to the ER and clearly wasn't himself against Illinois. And oh, by the way, you didn't have a guy in Frager who might be the 6th man of the year. He had a rough game out at Rutgers, which I actually took as a good sign, Caleb, because I've adopted this idea that you kind of want Nebraska to have one of their core players to struggle in the game prior, and then you expect that guy to play really well in the next game. So yeah. Frager, I'm looking for a nice performance from Frager against Purdue. Everybody else was kind of pretty much what you get from them. And Mass, we saw, had a nice bounce back game as well.
Yeah, and for Frager, you didn't get the pouring it on 20 plus because he goes ballistic from deep like he did against Illinois. But what did he not do against Illinois? He didn't attack the rim a whole bunch. He did one time and he got fouled and he got 2 free throws for it. But against Rutgers, there was a lot more get a guy on his hip, try to get into the paint. It didn't work out. He ended up with, I think, 6 points in the game. But that's what I wanted to see from him from a health standpoint. How is that ankle? How is that aggression coming back as that rehabs? How close to 100% can he be? Because that's a different element he brings to the offense. It's interesting anytime you see Sam able to get into the paint. Sometimes Kale will, and then he tries to spray it out. Price, it's super sneaky when he gets in there. But Frager is that guy that if he can get someone on his hip, he's trying to end a life at the rim. Nobody else on the team is doing that.
Yeah, well, and look, if he can snatch some souls while grabbing the rim and throwing it down, I think that's certainly what we're looking for here from Nebraska basketball. So, again, Purdue game on Tuesday. It's a big one. Nebraska have the opportunity. If you get through that, we've got in the comments here. I'll bring it up on the screen. Sentences like this are being said. Sentences like this. 100%. I mentioned 29-2, and it's just like, it's realistic. It's not some fantastical world that we're living in where this is a possibility. It's honestly something that is conceivable, and you begin to expect it. You begin to expect Nebraska basketball to just do these things, and they've given you every reason to think it, because every time someone's like, well, this is a game where they're not going to show up, maybe they don't show up for like half of a half, or maybe they don't show up for one really bad 4-minute stretch. But for the most part, this is a team that knows what's at stake. This is a team that likes to play basketball with one another. And this is a team that just feeds off of each other as they play. I mean, you can see it. The way that Rink started that game against Rutgers, you could just tell he was about to have a good night. And the rest of the team, or good day, I guess it was an 11 a.m. body clock tip for them. The rest of the team was going to feed into that because they were getting him the ball. They were getting him the ball in the spots where he wanted it. I love the passing with this team. I mean, it is unbelievable basketball porn watching them work the ball around, finding the perfect pass. I mean, a lot of these guys, it's not just that they're like good at simple passes, they're good at challenging ones as well. Like Berke, I give Berke some grief because I feel like his basketball IQ isn't where I want it to be, or he's sometimes a little more physical than he needs to be. He's a very skilled passer. Like he has creativity in the way that he can move the ball through the lane that defies the logic of what comes out of a Turkish power forward. It's not like it's not Ricky Rubio, but he has handles not handles maybe isn't the right word, but he's got the ability to pass like that because he can see the court. We know that from Rink Mass, and we know that from like Sam Hoiberg and from Lawrence and from Jacobson. We've learned it from Sanford, and Frager. I mean, there's a fearlessness and there's an expectation of like, hey, I see this. I think my teammate sees it too. I'm going to put the ball there, and there he is, and he's ready to not throw it down, put it gently off the backboard for a layup on a nice backdoor cut, or there just happen to there's times where a ball is thrown And the guy that's the receiving end of it isn't even in the spot where he's going to be, and it's going to be a basket because he's wide open in the corner.
Mhm.
Sanford had one of those where they worked it around, and you could just see on your television, like, they're going to get it to the corner. They're going to get it to the corner. Wide open three, nails it, runs down the court. I mean, it's fantastic. It really is.
It's so different watching the passing in the way. Take us back to the fall, and you see someone open, you're like, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Never mind, he got sacked. Touchdown, touchdown. Okay, he sailed that 10 yards out of bounds. Here, you watch the play develop, and you go, he's going to have a wide open layup, and you see it like 3 seconds before it happens. It's so fun to see it, the way it plays out. Back to a second on Josh's comment on you finished 28-3 at least if you beat Purdue. That would mean you're going into the Big Ten tournament, likely a top 2 seed, and you would be favored. Forget seeding here for the NCAA tournament, Schaefer. There's the potential you go into Selection Sunday with 30 wins.
Yeah.
You're not can you get to that 2 number at the front of your win-loss record? There's the outside chance, and realistic chance is where this is. I shouldn't even say outside. There's a realistic path for Nebraska to be at 30 wins when their name is called on Selection Sunday. But it begins with taking care of business in a game like this on Tuesday.
Yep. And then you have legitimate opportunity to, before you even get there, you will have set the school record for regular season wins. You could set the school record for wins in an entirety of a season, which counts. I think one of those years they won the Big 12 or whatever and finished with, or Big 8, and they finished with 27 wins. But you have the opportunity to do all of this before you even get to postseason play. Like, it's just a truly remarkable year for this program, and there's still so much more out there. And again, why is it not Tuesday, and how do I have to wait until 6 o'clock already?
I'm sorry you have to sit through doing a show with me before you get there, and at least you get a Nebraska
show of you. I got to do a show of Captain Creighton Connor Happer tomorrow, where we'll probably downplay the significance.
And I loved going up and talking I can't even remember what game it was, but I went up and asked him. I was like, "Hey, so about that rage bait, how you feeling? You like that? Was that a good time?"
He before that segment even started, I was looking at it, and he looks at me, looking at the tweet, and he's like, "He knew what he was doing."
I
posted
did.
It, and he went away.
I saw some of the reactions. I went, "We're going to mute this conversation now before it gets into the other fan base," because it was a good time for me. For those that don't know, I made a reference to Nebraska's all-time record in the NCAA tournament and weeks ranked in the AP, and compared it to Creighton's, but also number of weeks ranked higher than 6th, I think it was, because that was the highest that Creighton had ever been ranked. And it was like, well, Nebraska's got that one over Creighton. And it was like, it was fun and kind of tongue-in-cheek. Some folks definitely thought I was rage baiting, which maybe there's a side of it too.
It happens.
Let me say this one more thing about this team. It's not just the historical parts of the 3 straight seasons of getting to 20 straight wins. You've already got, or at least 20 wins. You've already got that. It's not the school record for road wins in conference season, where you already have that. You're already at 6, and the most you'd ever had was 5. You have to go back to a Big 8 team and 3 teams from the Missouri Valley Conference in the teens and 20s 100 and 110 years ago. It's the fact that the team is so fun. Like, it's not just because they're winning. This team is fun. The personalities are fun. Seeing Bear K with all of the just like unbridled emotion when he dives on the floor at PBA, the number of times he's been punched in the face and just come out bleeding and yelling at the student section, everything Sam Hoiberg does on the floor, Jamarcus Lawrence hitting FU threes whenever he gets a little bit pissed off at somebody, like everything Rink does, Frager pissing off everybody on everyone else's team, and we would probably hate him.
How does the Jeremy Fears Jr. stuff sit now that it's no longer January 2nd, and Fears has been involved in like 14 different controversies since then? And it's like, oh yeah, this guy got to shoot free throws because of some finger guns. Meanwhile, he's tripping literally everyone that's on the basketball court and kicking dudes in the nuts. He's auditioning to be Draymond Green.
Don't worry. Hey, he has a 3.1 GPA, Mike. He's got a 3.1. Ask Izzo. He's got a 3.1 GPA.
Nobody cares, Tom.
Off the court. But what do we all see on the court? There's clearly an issue. There's clearly something happening.
There's clearly, you talk about how you big talk in the Michigan game about what you were going to do, and then nothing, in the Minnesota game after that, and then nothing comes of it, and he plays the entirety of the game against Illinois and trips another guy.
He's making Brad Davidson look like my favorite player.
Yeah. I mean, he's evoking like every sort of Grayson Allen, Brad Davidson, like all of these guys that you just don't enjoy because they muck up games and they're douchebags. Like that's what they are. It's the all douchebag team.
Yes, just play the game, because at the end of the day, like, Fears is extremely talented. Like, he's really good. You don't have to do these other things. Yeah. And that's the thing.
Just go be good at basketball.
And that's the thing. Like, other fan bases clearly do not like Fears. Other fan bases and other teams do not like Frager. And at times, Cale Jacobson gets under some skin too. But what do you not see those guys doing? A lot of non-basketball things on the floor. That's the difference. That Frager gets under the skin because he's probably talking crap in a way that he shouldn't, but he's also backing it up really, really well. If he was out there tripping a bunch of guys, we wouldn't be on here defending him. And I think you're seeing a lot of the Michigan State people come around to the idea of, all right, Fears is really good, but you got to stop that.
Yeah. Yeah, you would hope. You would hope. All right, let's dive into some football here before I've got a blind ranking. I've got a blind rankings that we're going to have to
do our own show.
Well, I don't know. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but I do want to at least get your thoughts on where Nebraska sits after they've largely concluded their offseason. I mean, at least a player procurement, the coaches, Tyler Yelk now, the new safeties coach after losing Miles Taylor and all of his contributions in the couple weeks that he had been with the program to the Baltimore Ravens. Tyler Yelk now comes to Nebraska from the Eagles. He had coached with Rob Arch. And so you've got a guy that, you feel good about his experience working with some of the guys on this staff. And he's the second defensive backs coach. It never felt like it was a huge deal, but you have that finalized. We know what their plan is on special teams. They've gotten all the players they're going to have for the upcoming year. There's not likely to be any other notable additions. How do you just kind of feel about things?
Meh. There wasn't.
That's fair. I think that's very fair.
There wasn't anything that felt like it was the home run, get excited for the season type of thing. You go back 2 years, and he was going to be a freshman, but it felt like you were able to get that from Dylan Raiola's coming in. This feels like it's going to have a different trajectory. You go last year and you have the year 3 stuff is coming up, and guess what? Special teams has been an issue, but here comes Mike Eckler. And you have all of these things, and Emmett Johnson's coming back, and maybe there's a little excitement, not any excitement that people thought he was going to be an All-American and in the Doak Walker conversation and top 10 all-purpose yards in program history. But there were reasons to be excited coming back last year. This year, it's okay. Now you've had back-to-back 7 and 6 seasons. A lot of the apathy is setting in. You didn't go get this big heavy hitter on either side of the ball, lost the special teams coordinator, recycled a bunch of your other assistant coaches, your defensive coordinator, you made a change there. It just feels okay. And then maybe this is just a bigger part of where it is going into year 4 of a program that hasn't gotten to at least 8 wins. You got to show me something before the excitement comes in. Because right now, the first 3 years, we're living on excitement before we were shown. And it's so much gotten to, you're going to have to show me something with the pieces that you have assembled before I get excited about what's coming, especially when you get to October and November on the schedule.
And, of course, the difficult part about that is that you've got a 3-game kind of runway where you don't play anyone. Then your first 2 games in Big Ten are Michigan State and Maryland. The expectation is that you should be able to beat those programs. Now, Nebraska has not lost to Maryland, I think, since they've been in the Big Ten, but they have lost to Michigan State. They lost to him with an interim coach in 23. They lost to him when they punted the wrong direction in 21. We could run down the list, but it's one of these things where that's not a gimme, but you're also not going to get a ton of credit for if you are able to get through it. Like the thing that's sort of difficult is that I think we want to know in advance what sort of season we're actually looking at. And it could just set up to be where Nebraska has a record that looks good and you don't have any feel for whether the team is good or not. Like that's kind of what it was in October of 25. That's kind of what it was in October of 23 and 24. Like it's one of these things where it feels really weird to say this because you spend so much time building up to the season, but it's just one of those where it's like everything is kind of out the window until you get to the month of November. And then at that point, there needs to be some wins in there and wins plural, not just one. Because if you only get one, you're probably looking at 6-6 at best. So it's just a kind of a wild year. In addition to, they don't really have they have a player that you'd say is the face of the program right now.
No.
You don't like you didn't replace your All-American running back. You're just going from within with that. You like your wide receivers, but I don't know that we're at the point with Isaiah Hunter or Ja'Cory Barney where you call them the face of your program.
Exactly. Like they were probably going to be as close as any, it seems like.
Right. And then you have Tony Calandria, who just got here, or Anthony Calandria, and we don't know what he's going to be. He could very much he's kind of like the wild card in all of this, because if he ends up playing really well and he elevates your team enough, he could be someone that pushes you over the top because of his ability to create and do everything else. And maybe it opens up a different part of your offense. He could also just end up being a game manager that's able to help get you to like 20 points because you're hoping to play through your defense in all of 2026. And then we say play through your defense as if there's a player on that side of the ball that you would say, oh, this guy definitely has a chance to be in all Big Ten conversation. But we don't know. Like it feels closer to 2023 than any other of the seasons I can think of in recent memory. You're going to have a transfer quarterback that is divisive because he turns the ball over and he didn't have a ton of success at an ACC school. You have no idea what you're going to get out of your running back situation. Mm-hmm. And you have a new defensive coordinator that quite frankly might be the key to the entire season. And we saw what happened in 23. Honestly, if you get that sort of defensive effort, I would think Nebraska could win 7 to 8 games. If you could play that level of defense that they did in 23, whether you can or not in 26, who knows?
Well, and the part that's so tough is you intentionally brought in a smaller, so really lowly ranked 2026 class. And it was nice that you were able to go get Berryman on this latest signing day. But he won't be here in the spring, so there's no kind of jump start for what he can do. So you have a smaller, intentionally smaller high school class. You don't have a highly ranked transfer portal class. Like you got pieces that you needed in places to help you out, but you're also coming back from a team that was 7-6. Like how different does it feel if you go get those same pieces, but you went 9-4 instead? There feels like a giant difference in that. Because you're bringing back a team that had an average year just over 500. Like, I understand the stuff about Nebraska's history the last decade, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. But you still just went 7-6 and then brought in some plug-and-play pieces and didn't go get a whole bunch of other guys to come in and help you out. And you reset a bunch of the coaching staff and you lost some really good players. So it's where you add all of that in, Mike, and then you get to this schedule where there's multiple college football playoff teams that you're going to have to see. You're going to have to go to Eugene. You host the national champion Indiana. You've got a November slate. Well, you have Halloween against Washington, and that's never easy. You have a November slate of at Illinois, at Rutgers, home with Ohio State, and at Iowa. This team could go 5-7 and be definitively better than last year's team.
Yeah.
Like they could, from a talent wise, from a production standpoint, everything about this team could be scraping just to make a bowl game, but be Matt Rule's best team. And that's the hard part about trying to get to drum up excitement going into the spring, is that you lost perhaps your most popular assistant coach in Mike Eckler, and that's seemingly because he wanted to have a defensive coaching role and not just special teams. Fine, you brought in Orich, and you wanted to hand him everything except Addison Williams. Like, that was your one thing. There just isn't anything that says I'm overly excited going into year 4 because the team added this, this, and this, and the schedule lines up this way. Everything really plays against Matt Rule in year 4 in the way that it feels like it's a filler year. Don't let the bottom drop out. Just get to another bowl game and then see how year 5 looks. When you bring in Trey Taylor as a true freshman, shout out Millard South. When you have when you're able to get another year of your quarterback room development, can you have a bigger, better 2027 high school signing class? Can you parlay that into a better portal class? It just seems like, and you got a bunch of underclassmen. Can you develop them to go into 2027? 2026 just feels like we're all waiting for it to be over already.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it feels like this is exactly the time where if you were going to surprise someone, it should come out of this. It should come out of the period where people have the most amount of ambivalence and doubt and certainty as to what you're going to be. And we'll see if they're capable of doing that. It's also, the schedule is difficult, but it sets up for all of these opportunities to prove that you deserve to be on the field against these other teams, that you deserve to share the field with Indiana and Oregon and Ohio State, and you deserve to share the field with Washington on Halloween, or on the road against Illinois. That back to back, I expect Nebraska should be able to win both of those games in any given year, but I'm going to be a little bit disappointed if they're not even able to win one of them. You can't just cede the middle of this conference to everybody else. At some point, you got to beat teams to even have the ability to be in the conversation. And frankly, Nebraska just hasn't. They haven't done it enough. So we will see if that shifts. I just kind of wanted to get a gauge. We had a good conversation with Jack Mitchell on Friday about sort of where the mental gauge was for people with this. So I wanted to see where you were at. I want to see where you were at with this blind rankings, because it is going to be fun. Famously, Caleb, do you know the last time Nebraska won a conference championship in football?
Oh, in 1999.
You got it correct. Here's what we're going to do today. A blind rankings of who deserves the most blame for why Nebraska has not won a football conference championship since 1999.
I already know I'm going to get so much hate for this.
It is going to be fun. All right. Well, we'll start with one that could be a layup. Could be. I mean, we'll see where you want to go with it. But this guy who had the nickname Rocket Man became AD in the early 2000s. And of course, I'm talking about Steve Peterson, who hired Bill Callahan after a famous 40-plus day search when he replaced Frank Solich, who was the outgoing coach following the 2003 season. Steve Peterson was AD until, I want to say, October of 2007, when Nebraska finally surrendered the Big 12 to seemingly everybody else. And I think it was after that outstanding performance against Oklahoma State where they were shut out at home and the banner of surrender Steve Peterson was unfurled when he was relieved of his duties. So where would Steve Peterson rank 1 through 5 on blame for why Nebraska hasn't won a conference championship since 1999?
Well, he presided over the worst stretch of Husker football in 40 years until we got to the mid-2010s. So,
which is an important context to know, but it's also one of those where it was already starting to crack before he arrived.
Yes.
Did he just happen to create the crack and deepen it?
He becomes the scapegoat for a lot of people when you talk about this. I'm going to put him at 3.
Oh, he is at number 3. All right. Next on the list, and this is going to be divisive. There's going to be some angry messages from people. It could get thrown back in my face for even suggesting this, but I think there's two valid reasons why this person could be on the list. First, Tom Osborne retired and he didn't have to. So we're talking about Tom Osborne here. So that's to start with. Now, he did it potentially for health reasons, so he would go on to be a United States representative back when this was less of a divisive thing in our country, and then also ran for governor, which he did not win. In the meantime, Nebraska football was handed off to Frank Solich, who did win a conference title in 1999. So it's not as if Tom Osborne didn't get the job done there, but he did handpick Frank Solich as the next successor instead of Nebraska ending up with somebody else potentially to take them to a different level. Also, famously, Tom Osborne replaced Steve Peterson and hired Bo Pelini when Nebraska had to make a decision in 2007. Who else could he have hired at that time? There were some different people, different places he could have went, including, somebody like Brian Kelly could have been Nebraska's coach. I don't know how people would have received that necessarily, but he would have won at a higher level than Bo, I'm guessing. And so where would Tom Osborne rank on this list for you?
Well, and he also, because he handpicked his successor, it was all of his assistants staying too. Yep. So there's a lot that Frank Solich had to inherit on top of all of the expectations, which is not necessarily like a bad, sure. Having expectations is not a bad thing, but it is part of the equation. To me, the number one reason Nebraska football has not won a conference championship in the new millennium is Dr. Tom Osborne.
Whoa! Okay. So we have number one, Tom Osborne. 2 is still open. Number 3, Steve Peterson. 4 and 5 left to go. Let's go to number 3 on the list. Now, this individual has had his hand in a number of different things at Nebraska, including being the head coach of Nebraska's last 3 appearances in conference championship games. Yes, I'm talking about Bo Pelini. Where would Bo Pelini, who presided over Nebraska as a head coach when they reached it in 2009 against Texas, the head coach in 2010 when they reached it against Oklahoma, and of course, famously, the head coach of what was like a 70-31 loss to Wisconsin in a game in which they were favored to win the Big Ten championship. What about Bo, Caleb?
And the Badgers only made that championship because of ineligible teams on the other side of the conference.
Yeah.
Bo, obviously, you have to do something to get to the conference championship game.
Sure.
So like that is a large part of this playing in his favor. He just never really got it done when he was there. He also could have kept like some comments to himself that helped him get fired. So we'll see if the firing party ends up being part of these blind rankings. I'm going to put Bo at 4.
Okay.
I don't like he needed to win the games when he got there, but he's Nebraska's best coach that they've had of the 2000s. It's far and away. He had the best run. He had the most consistent wins. He had the thing that looked the most like Nebraska of old, of consistently get to 9 wins, and then can you get over the hump when you get into that big game that matters? He just didn't, but he was in it. It is the thing that probably looked most like 70s and 80s Nebraska that my generation has actually been able to witness.
Okay, that's fair. So you have him at 4. So we have...
And actually, no, you know what? I'm going to put him at 5. I talked to myself. I think he has just about the least amount of blame for Nebraska to have not won a conference championship.
Okay, so we have number 1, Tom Osborne, number 2, open, number 3, Steve Peterson, number 4, open, and number 5, Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini at 5, and we will go next to this individual. Nebraska's best chance, literal best chance of winning a conference title was in 2009, and they may have been there, except one man held up a single digit, Mack Brown. Mack Brown was the coach of Texas in that game. Mack Brown could have been the next coach at Nebraska, depending on what you want to believe, in 1997 when Tom Osborne was already going to hand the reins off to Frank Solich. Is there a world where Nebraska has Mack Brown and just winning national titles left and right? Who knows? We'll never know. Where would Mack Brown rank on this list with his single ditch it.
I mean, we can all hold up one finger and be like, hey, there's 1 second. Hey, there's 1 second. Ultimately, it's the officials who have to do it, and it's the officials who have to hose over the Huskers. Yeah, you can think that there's a whole bunch of influence because of everything that Mac Brown's got going on, but ultimately, he's not the decision maker. So I'll put him down at 4.
Okay, that leaves you with number 2 open. And I suspect that you were looking for this name all along to go at number 2. Little Red has damned this program since his existence. And now he slots in at number 2. Why has Nebraska not won a conference championship? Because it has an inflatable that all he does is jump on his stupid head and cause Nebraska pain and sorrow. Some have suggested that he needs to be sacrificed at the 50-yard line for Nebraska to move forward in football. Others feel like that's a little bit too strong. However, you, Caleb, now have Little Red, number 2, biggest reason why Nebraska has not won a conference championship since 1999. How do you feel about it?
Not great. Not great. I probably would have slid everyone up and put Lil Red at 5. Nebraska did win national championships with Lil Red on the sideline. Like,
yeah, but he got too big for his inflatable britches, I think.
Let's not think he was only added in 2002 or something. Like they went.
I think that's how I'd prefer to feel.
Here are some god awful football uniforms. Also, have you seen our new inflatable? They didn't roll him out with that kind of an introduction. I was playing the blind rankings game and really hoping we were going to get Sean Eichhorst, because it would have felt like a really complete 1 through 5 for me. Lil Red there kind of mucks it up a little bit, so I'm not happy with that portion of it.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm trying to see. I had some others out here. I guess Eichhorst is really the only other one. I thought about including the Big 12 in general with the way that they split things up and change the conference a little bit. The dynamics of things. I thought about throwing that in there, but I just felt like Little Red needed to be included because I hate him.
Well, and you also you could throw in Texas as a whole in the way that they kind of, besides the power dynamic shifting in the league, them wanting to start the Longhorn Network, then you have the rumors of is Texas and everyone else going to the Pac-12. So Nebraska starts looking what is stability. Then you go to the Big Ten. Ultimately, the Big Ten, even though the Big 12 still had Oklahoma and Texas, the Big 12 was probably a place that you could have won more games every year than what Nebraska did from 2011 to now. So that part becomes, you probably blame, if we're still ranking further down, you blame Texas more than you do the Big 12 as a whole anyway. But there is a lot to go around on what are the things that worked against Nebraska when you're talking about just winning a conference championship.
Little Red, number 2.
Little Red, just behind T.O.
I'll be curious how people receive this, but we'll find out. If you have strong thoughts on it, hit us up on Feedback Friday. We can dissect. Who do you think is the biggest blame for Nebraska not being a conference championship since 1999? Feel free to do your own blind rankings. You can include Little Red. I don't care. You can just let me know, because I want to hear how you are feeling about it as we go forward. All right, Caleb. We didn't get to do this last week because I could not talk, and I'm sure that you had some great advice that you wanted to give that fell by the wayside.
Ooh.
Now we get to offer free advice again, and I will start here. And this one is not difficult, and it drove me nuts when Nebraska had a certain head coach who could not seem to figure this out. But when you are trailing in a game, you should start every possession thinking, if we score a touchdown, what are we going to do? What does that cut the deficit to? Where do we need to go? How many possessions will we need relative to how much time is left in the game? It is a very easy equation. I, Mike Schaefer, am terrible at math. I have always been terrible at math. Not simple math, not easy math, just a dumb math with imaginary numbers and letters and everything else that isn't really math. It's just dumb. Now, I can almost always tell you when it makes the most sense to go for 2, and I don't need a chart to do it. It's just very simple as you are lining up how many points you need relative to the next possession that you have. How many points will you need there? Could you cut it down an entire possession? If the answer is yes, you very much want to go for 2. There is a huge difference between 12 points and 11 points. So the next opportunity that Mike Vrabel, who I had spent 2 weeks discussing as very, very good head coach, one of the smartest head coaches in football, always does the right thing. He could not make that cut. Now, it didn't matter. His team was not going to play well enough in the Super Bowl for it to matter. But we saw this happen in Ole Miss versus Miami. Like, you don't need a chart to tell you when to go for 2. It should be very, very simple as to how many possessions you want to try to replace. And then if you want to game theory out what the other team does and what that does to the point total, feel free. Also not hard. You're adding by 2, 3, 6. These are not numbers that are very difficult to work with, Caleb. So it should not require some sort of flow chart as to how to do it. And yet coaches fail at this all the time, including Scott Frost, who kicked more extra points down by 24 than any individual had any reason to. If it happens more than 2 times, there should be an intervention. And yet, he's still coaching somewhere.
I feel like you're going to get hired for the next Microsoft Copilot commercial to run at the Super Bowl.
Good Lord. Those commercials are dumb too.
It was awful.
Like not even the Super Bowl one, the one where it's like, yeah, people really make their draft class by asking Copilot as to who's going to get the most tackles. It's that simple. Congratulations for your really dumb commercial. Anyway,
although I felt like that's how the Bears were drafting for a while.
I hope that they continue to draft like that.
Stop it. I got some free advice for Shaun White. Hey, your career is over. And it's nice to hear from former athletes when they're on the big stage that few people can understand. Stop friggin' talking about yourself. Not every country has to be a personal connection during the opening ceremony for you. And guess what? You've also had a crap year, and we're Team Nina Dobrev in this house. Get off my friggin' TV and talking about whatever connection you have to somewhere up in the fjords.
Was not expecting that. Was not expecting that. Really, I had seen this complaint from other people, and I had not watched the Shaun White during the opening ceremonies or just him talking about every country and how he sort of fits in with them. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna have to go back and check that out. It was that bad. All right, here's some free advice to Big Ten officials. Just if you see Bryce Sanford struggling to get around on the court and his jersey seems like it's being tugged a little bit on Tuesday, blow the whistle. Just blow the whistle. We know Purdue's going to shoot free throws on Tuesday. This is going to happen. They shot 25 against Oregon. Nebraska, which is routinely a team that does not foul a bunch relative to other teams in the country, just played Illinois and Michigan and allowed or, yielded, I guess, if you would, 40-plus free throws. I would expect Purdue to shoot a lot on Tuesday. I hope Nebraska gets the benefit of the doubt when it comes to Bryce Sanford because they will be grabby because everybody is grabby. And that's why Fred Hoiberg put him on notice after the Illinois game.
Yeah, at some point, Price is going to start drawing a lot of fouls when he's running around. I'll go back to the Olympics. Some free advice for just anybody over these next couple of weeks as everything's going on over in Italy. Allow yourself to get caught up in the just unbridled emotion at times of the spectacle. You don't have to understand what's going on all times in curling or why that skier has a gun or why they're injecting certain organs on their body with something so they can fly through the air. Just get caught up in it. I got to tell you, Mike, I was watching yesterday the final day because it was a 2-day competition for the ice skating team competition. And they have the pair come out of Danny O'Shea and Ellie Cam. And they're talking about them, just don't get last. And it helps the United States points. Just don't get last. They absolutely friggin' nail it. They're going through their competition. You're like, okay, don't get last. You start to add some points. I don't know anything that's going on. I just know they need to not get last. And then they're doing their routine. And it's, okay, I watched them only land one throw in practice. Well, they have multiple throws in their routine. They hit it, they get done. They're going crazy. I was brought to emotional tears because I was so proud watching them They ultimately don't get last. The United States edges out Japan because the quad god goes ballistic in the final free skate for the team. It's so much fun. Allow yourself over these next couple of weeks, whether it's an American story, a Georgian story, again, somewhere from a person who grew up around fjords, whatever it is, allow yourself to just be emotionally 100%. It's much more fun to live that way, and the Olympics are one of the best times of year anyway.
I do love the Winter Olympics. Theo wanted to let you know, Caleb, Shaun White, thumbs down emoji. Well said, Caleb. So we appreciate it from Theo there on a super chat. I'll add to the Olympics conversation just real briefly here. I really do enjoy the Winter Olympics. If you don't watch speed skating, I don't know what to tell you. It is amazing. It is the closest that I get to what I really want, which is roller derby to be a real sport. And watching these people make these degree of turns where their body is almost parallel to their face is almost parallel to the ice as they are flying down this short track. It is absolutely incredible. I love it. Like I genuinely really love it. So I advise people get a little short track, a little speed skating in your life, just to throw the Winter Olympics. It's such a nice thing to have on in the background. Like I don't know anything about most of the events that are happening, but aesthetically very pleasing. And I just think more people need to enjoy it. Now, when hockey comes around, that's going to be fantastic. I mean, it's already happening, but when we really get into it, when we get USA versus Canada again, then you can really get into your patriotic motions and root for the United States to finally dethrone our hated Canadian rivals.
And the U.S. men have not had a gold medal since Miracle on Ice.
Yeah.
So you know what? You got to go through. You had the Four Nations stuff. That was a lot of fun last year. Yeah, go through and get all patriotic for everything. Mike, instead of me giving one more free advice, I need to ask you for a little free advice.
Okay.
You have a little boy.
I do.
I'm 5 years in with raising a girl. I need some free advice from you on the first little bit that you have on raising a little boy.
Okay. Well, I mean, through just the environment of which he's been raised in, he can just identify every sport now seemingly on television. I was just trying to explain curling to him the other day, which I would not advise to do with a 2-year-old. Was very difficult, especially when they hit the Y phase and everything's a Y. And then it's like, you're trying to explain it, but you barely understand it yourself. I think if you want your child to be very into sports, you just have to get the exposure out there to them. And there's nothing easier than having your son be born into the best era of Nebraska basketball as we know it. He was born the night before Nebraska beat Michigan by like 40 points. His first year on earth featured a tournament team. His second year on earth featured a featured a crown championship, and now his third basic year. I mean, he just turned 2, but he's now living into his third year. They're going to be a tournament team again and potentially set the record. So I guess if nothing else, if you want to raise a boy that's really into sports, one, get really lucky as to when it happens, but also two, just have sports on all the time. It helps that there's very few other things that I could probably expose him to that he would have as much interest in that I would. And so that is helpful. Also, just be prepared for, to have a washcloth ready when you're doing the diaper changes. Those things have no aim and they can fire at any time.
I will begin instituting all of that advice in August.
Yeah, congratulations, man. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Number two, we're no longer able to zone things up. We got to man-to-man a little bit.
Got to go man-to-man. And at least in the early days, you can still probably get away with playing a zone. But as you know, once the mobility comes in, it is anyone's ball game at that point in time. And usually not yours.
Yes.
Usually not yours. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is outstanding things to learn here. How soon will you introduce this child to Little Red? How soon is too soon to make them terrified and ashamed?
Well, it's August. I don't know if we can get to Fan Day in time.
Probably not. Probably
So
not.
maybe one of those Cornhusker kickoffs. We'll roll the whole family down there if they continue to do those. We'll see if we can get in, because those are, I did enjoy Nebraska athletics bringing those over to the Hawks Championship Center. Those were a lot of fun, a little free event. So maybe we'll get the little one in there and get them initiated right away into what's going on for Husker athletics on a Saturday during hopefully a much more enthusiastic football season than we described earlier in the show.
Yeah, well, you never know. You never know when it's going to turn. It could be anytime. It could even be this season, but you do know you can count on Unemployed to have all of the coverage. Kaleb, thanks for being back here on a Monday. We missed you last week. I'm sure everybody missed us last week and this free advice that we offer that you could not get anywhere else, we swear. And we will be back tomorrow. Mike Sauter joins for Nebraska Ball Tuesday. I guarantee you I will get him worked up. I haven't figured out the blind rankings yet, but he is probably going to overanalyze all of it, and you get to watch and enjoy that. So Mike Sauter for Nebraska Ball Tuesday. We'll be back then at noon. It'll be live. We'll catch you then.